And we'll jump on in. So thanks for being here, y'all, today in this informational webinar for school and district leaders about Modern Classrooms project. The goal for today is really to articulate what we do and how we do it, and how you can get your school and district to partner with us, and especially looking at the Summer Institute. Then we'll do questions, and then we'll close it out. And sort of that's where we're heading. So today I'm going to cover the organization itself and the model, and then just review our training, and again, have time for your questions. So my name's Emily Dia. I'm the partnerships manager here at the Modern Classrooms Project. I was a middle grades teacher for 20 years in North Carolina, also an instructional coach and a middle school academic dean at that time. I started implementing the model in my 8th grade classroom in my 18th year of teaching, and found it to be so transformative, unlike anything I think I had ever tried in my nearly 2 decades of teaching at that time. I think for the first time, I was actually differentiating instruction, and just the formative data alone. There's so many other benefits, but the incredible formative data that I received on my students and my understanding of what they could actually do and have that supported with the data was just so transformative that I wanted to make sure that I could get this model into the hands of as many educators and leaders as possible. So that's what brings me to work here full time, and I'm glad to share this time with y'all today. So if you haven't already, you can make time to watch the Edutopia videos. This is really the best way to understand our model, to see it in action. So this is a secondary one and a newer elementary one. They're about 6 minutes each. It really does help you see how all the components work together in a live classroom setting. So we are an educational nonprofit founded by 2 teachers. We say we're an organization founded by teachers, for teachers, and powered by teachers. The mission of the organization is to build classrooms that truly respond to every kid's needs, and to leverage technology to foster connection, because we know that connection moves the needle forward, and that academic growth and social emotional growth are equally important. And that is the mission of our organization. We know that in traditional models of education, there's a lot of frustration, and a lot of us feel like we're really frustrated, and our kids feel like we're not getting them what they need. For example, in my classroom, I had this handful of kids who were on grade level or even ahead of grade level, and they were bored despite all of my best efforts to be truly engaging and keep them on their toes and extend what they could be doing in the classroom. I also had a handful of kids who were absent chronically and couldn't catch up, and realized pretty quickly that my emailing them a list of things to do or leaving a packet at the front office wasn't helping them catch up. It was really just adding to the frustration. And then of course, a handful of students who were below proficiency in math and language arts, in my case in language arts, and were feeling really frustrated. They were lost, they weren't keeping up with the lessons. They needed more of my time. They needed more individual time. They needed small group time. And I was feeling like a failure because I couldn't really feel like I was helping anybody really well across that span of needs. Our founders felt the same way and really decided we've got to develop a new approach to teaching that really will help us meet this range of learners in every classroom all over the world. So our personalized training program is that reimagining. So what we do is we empower educators to implement an instructional model that's based on 3 tenets: blended instruction, self-pacing, and mastery-based grading. None of which are new in our field, right? But they're often these ideas that we all agree as educators are great for kids, but they're just really hard sometimes to put into very practical practice or application. So our training program helps teachers to do that really, really clearly. So when we're talking about blended learning in a modern classroom, blended instruction, we're really focusing on eliminating the whole class lecture to really free up that bottleneck of teacher direct instruction time. Whether it's 10 minutes in a mini lesson or 25-minute lecture, like some classes, it's still a lot of time you're not really working directly with kids. By having students watch instructional videos during that class time, then you, the teacher, are freed up to do small group and individual instruction, and really just to connect and get around to as many kids as you can. In a modern classroom, blended instruction also looks like having students be able to access your instructional materials and all the resources they need for the unit at any location at any given time. So really leveraging the learning management system, really leveraging your organization in terms of your unit planning, and really rolling it out that way. This approach to blended instruction really allows us to give our best to our kids. This is a quote from our one of our mentors, Alora. She's up in Pennsylvania. She's a kindergarten teacher. And we'll be sure to share these slides after the fact, but you are welcome to watch her instructional video here. Check out that work. So when we're talking about self-pacing in a modern classroom, we're thinking about it first in the context of one unit, so within a unit of study. And this is important because A, it's dangerous to scaffold a whole year of instruction. It's not productive in terms of shrinking the opportunity gaps, and it's certainly not productive in supporting students. They need clear guardrails and need clear structures along the course of the year. And then B, it really allows schools and districts to continue to administer end-of-year assessments, common exams, other common assessments, and to really stay in line with school and district priorities. So this self-pacing within a unit allows flexible thinking and flexible scheduling for educators to really personalize instruction. So you may be thinking like, well, what if the kid doesn't master every skill in the unit? And that's what we think about as lesson classifications. So in a modern classroom, every lesson is classified as must do, should do, or aspire to do. Those must do lessons are those most essential pieces of content and skills that every kid should master before moving on to the next unit of study. This really allows us to target kids that maybe are falling behind or that have experienced trauma or that have had a chronic absence situation. They can really just focus on the most essential lessons. The should do and aspire to do lessons are those extension opportunities, maybe extending the knowledge of a must do lesson or even going into an application level and an aspire to do opportunity. In my classroom, for example, a must-do lesson would have been adding transitions to an argumentative essay. Perhaps the should-do lesson would be really looking at crafting a transition. How can you really make your transitions nuanced in a really writerly craft kind of way? In my classroom, the aspire to do was always a kind of a parallel experience that was related to what we were working on. So in an argumentative essay unit, if a child was on pace and had gotten caught up and wanted to, they could work on a creative writing unit that I had kind of laid across on the side. It was very independent. Didn't have time to cover a lot of creative writing and fiction in my curriculum. So that Aspire to Do pathway was always there for students. Some teachers leverage Aspire to Do activities and projects. Centers in the primary grades are sometimes Aspire to Do. So there's all kinds of options there, tons of flexibility in the model, but as you're thinking about lesson classification. And then the final piece of self-pacing is progress tracking. And I think this is the sweet spot. This is the secret sauce of self-pacing. In other words, how am I as a teacher going to know exactly where every kid is in the course of this self-paced unit? We can do that in a couple of ways. One is a student-facing tracker. You can see in this example that a teacher has designed a game board. They've color-coded the game board by must-dos as teals, should-dos as purple. So kids know what lessons are required, and they're monitoring their own progress throughout this really clear start and stop to the unit. Another way to do it is a classroom-facing tracker or public tracker. This bottom image speaks to that model. And you can see here that the names listed correspond to the suggested pacing of the unit. They're color-coded in that way. It does a couple of things. One, it allows me as the teacher to be very strategic in how I'm pulling groups. So in this particular example, I might say, okay, all the kids who need a revision on lesson 5, that's my first small group today once people get going on their work time. The other piece is that it really facilitates incredible connection in terms of a culture of collaboration and a culture of revision in the classroom. So when students walk in, usually teachers have an opening routine around the progress tracker. I might say, let's set goals for today. If you're on the same lesson as someone else, you can collaborate on that lesson. You can seek out a person to support you if they're a lesson ahead of you, for example. So there's all kinds of opportunities within the tracker to really build classroom culture, as well as to support the different paces of learning. Then the third component of the model is mastery-based grading. When we talk about mastery-based grading, we're really thinking very intentionally about designing a check for understanding, a mastery check, an exit ticket, a formative assessment for every single lesson in the unit. And in a modern classroom, a student can't go on to lesson 2 until they have shown proficiency on the skill or content in lesson 1, that mastery. And then we're really asking teachers to define very clearly what that criteria is. I know for me as a teacher, I was really, really great about defining criteria for the summative assessment experience, the project, the essay. whatever it was that we were up to. And I was really intentional about designing redos and retakes for those experiences. However, in a modern classroom, that level of rigor and accountability for mastery is really happening all throughout the unit. So we coach teachers to think about, what is your policy for revision and reassessment and reflection? How are students going to really move through that revision process again and again to make sure that they're getting all the essential content under their belts before they approach that summative experience? In this picture, you can see a couple of kids. They're both taking mastery checks. The teacher has color-coded them. So they're actually taking assessments for different lessons at the same time. And then back here, we've got a group of students working together. So in a modern classroom, the blended learning, the self-pacing, the mastery-based grading is all sort of happening in a given time at any given time. So it's a little bit of controlled chaos, but it's also beautiful and everyone's on task. So that's a little bit about our model itself. I want to talk briefly about research and impact and then pivot to our training. So we are a research-backed organization and we're looking for specific impacts with teachers and with students. With teachers, we're really hoping that teachers develop this backwards design mindset, that they are developing units and a whole unit at a time, that they're also becoming more data-driven, that they're actually using the data they're seeing in class to inform their instruction, and that they're finding teaching more sustainable, that they're spending a lot less time managing behavior and trying to deliver to everyone, and spending a lot more time supporting student learning. And for students, we're hoping that they develop more 21st century skills, expecting that. They're more autonomous and self-aware, that they're able to articulate, this is my particular level of challenge, regardless of my learning level, that they understand differentiation very clearly in that way, and that they internalize that progress is not contingent upon, is only contingent upon mastery, not like compliance or completion. And so this idea of authentic mastery is something we're looking for. So we did a control study and continue to do control studies with Johns Hopkins University. You can see that we studied about 1,900 students and 55 teachers in this study. Half were traditional educators and half were modern classroom educators. And we saw statistically significant gains on student and teacher ends. I'm going to share that with you. So you can see the impacts on students were really strong. All the things we were hoping to see. Kids felt like they could teach themselves new things. They could catch up if they missed a class. They actually enjoyed learning and were responsible for their own learning. So the teacher gains were really, really striking and really encouraging. And this is actually when the model began to grow and spread across districts and schools all over. So you can see that in a modern classroom, teachers feel way more equipped to catch up kids when they're absent. They feel much more prepared to be able to effectively serve the wide range of needs in front of them. They're actually using data to inform instruction to support kids, and they can feel like they can work closely with each of the students during class time. In my experience, for example, in a typical unit, I would confer with maybe 3 kids, maybe 4 on a good day during a class period, 45-minute class period. In a modern classroom, I was getting to 12, 15 kids every day. And that's just because I had that extra time that I wasn't, transitioning to a mini lesson or pulling small groups. I didn't have as much restriction. I was actually getting right to working with kids right away. Just that sheer increase in touch points with them was so powerful in terms of really understanding where they were and really being able to differentiate based on what I was seeing in front of me. So the university found overwhelming positive support for the Modern Classrooms project, especially in the areas of differentiation and students' ability to self-direct their learning. And you can read the full report. It's on the last slide of this slide deck if you are interested in learning more. We're also curious to know long-term impacts on teachers who were using the model. So we did a survey and you can see some great results here. 85% of respondents said they actually enjoy teaching more now that they're using the Modern Classrooms model. They're finding teaching more sustainable. They're more likely to continue education as a career, which is a huge one for us. We believe that teachers need to keep teaching. We need to stop losing our best teachers. And so if our model can make it more sustainable, we're really excited about that. 85% felt more optimistic about the field in general, and 94% said, I'm actually not going to go back to teaching the way I was. I'm going to keep doing this model forever. And the last study I'll share with y'all is a case study one of our partners actually did in Concord, Michigan. This district decided to train 60% of their staff in the Modern Classroom's instructional model using the virtual mentorship program. And they were curious if the people in K-8 who would use that model, how that their training and how using the model in math would impact their MAP testing scores for math. And you can see there's like a really incredible results in terms of increase in proficiency from before Modern Classrooms and after Modern Classrooms. They're continuing this study, and their superintendent, Becky Hutchison, actually wrote an article about this in Getting Smart, which you can check out. It's a really exciting data point. So the reality is that right now we have a greater diversity of academic and emotional needs than ever before. We have frequent absences due to COVID. We have teacher shortages to deal with, sub shortages, and teachers have stronger tech skills than ever before. And so the path forward for teaching and learning really looks like creating differentiated student-centered classrooms that provide unrestricted access to learning and that leverage technology to build those relationships. And we believe that our model can really empower educators to do those things. The DOE and the Learning Policy Institute and the Christensen Institute agree. They name us as a model built for this particular moment. And you can read their reports and accolades here. So I want to pivot to training, make sure that we have some time to have questions at the end. But let's talk about how we support teachers and how we partner with schools and districts. So there are two ways to engage in our model. One is the free online course. To date, 33,000 teachers all over the globe have taken the free course. It's a great way to learn the model. It's popular, it's available to anyone, it's free. So if you leave this call and you say, hey, like, I think Modern Classrooms project is great. I really love the content and their principles, but I'm not really sure about a formal partnership right now. I would say send every educator you know through the free course. Maybe they'll run some PLCs and just start trying it on their own. But the virtual mentorship program is really how we build partnerships with schools and districts. And it's really the way that we are able to support educators very personally learning our model. And that's what I really want to focus on for the rest of our time together. So in the virtual mentorship program, whereas the free course takes about 5 hours to complete, the virtual mentorship program takes about 25 to 30 hours. And I'm someone who did the free course first and then started implementing a little bit and then took the virtual mentorship program. And I can tell you it is an investment in time, but it's also an incredible opportunity because you're creating classroom ready content to use with students. I also did some content creation as an instructional coach. So our model is also open to instructional leaders and coaches. You can imagine creating content for faculty meetings or adult facing PD for the year using the model. As a coach, you can also learn to norm on giving feedback to Modern Classrooms educators. So a couple of different pathways are available in the virtual mentorship program in terms of educators and leaders. So the goal, regardless of your role, is to build 3 full Modern Classrooms lessons along with a self-pacing plan and a learning design plan. So participants are going to think about everything from like, how am I going to roll out collaboration strategies? How am I going to really model motivation? How am I going to track progress? As well as best practices around video creation, mastery checks. And then to finish the course, they'll complete 2 more instructional videos and 2 more mastery checks to have that final 3 mini unit sort of creation. The whole course is self-paced. It's totally asynchronous, just like we would self-pace in a modern classroom. And again, there's assignments for every submission. During the school year, we have cohorts that run 8 to 12 weeks. Our final school year cohort is this March. And then in the summer, we have 3 Summer Institute sessions and they run 5 weeks. And we'll talk a little bit more about them in a minute. So once you're in the program, you're partnered with a mentor. Those mentors are folks who are teaching right now, who are using the model, either as an instructional coach or as an educator in a classroom. So when a mentee signs up for the virtual mentorship program, they will be partnered with that mentor. Once they submit an assignment in the program, they are giving feedback from their mentor that's very personalized. You can see it's all mastery-based, just like our model. They get strengths, they get areas to grow, suggestions, linked resources. So by the time the course is done, educators will have between 10 and 12 pages of personalized feedback from their mentor about the things that they've created in the course. It's truly like the most personalized, practical professional development I think I've ever done in 20 years of education. There's also an opportunity for live sessions and live engagements if educators would like to attend. We do have live sessions that dig deeper into the elements of the model. And then we also offer additional live supports like connecting through our Slack channel or office hours, scheduling appointments with particular staff members if there's a specific question going on. So we do have live options as well. Live connection options. So this is the Summer Institute. As I shared, we have 3 particular dates or 3 options of sessions that educators can attend in May, June, and in July. Again, it's the same content, working one-on-one with a mentor, engaging in those live presentations if you'd like, and then receiving additional support as you so desire. It's just 5 weeks, so it's a little bit truncated in the summer. And the last thing I'd share with y'all is that we've got teacher leadership pathways here at the Modern Classroom Project. We really believe in elevating the voices and the leadership of teachers. And one way we can do that is through our credentialing program. Teachers, after they're implementing, can apply to become a distinguished Modern Classroom educator. They fill out a narrative portfolio application. If they're selected, then that creates an eligibility to apply to be an expert mentor. Our mentors are those people who are walking alongside the virtual mentorship program participants. They make $50 an hour. They set their own capacity. So they can say, I'd like to work with 5 educators this season, or I'd like to work with 25. And they are our best or our most accomplished implementers of the model. We really also believe in credentialing because in terms of creating long-term sustainability and innovation and groundswell and reimagining teaching and learning in your school or district, having a foundation of DMCEs and expert mentors is going to be huge to support your community internally along that pathway of implementation of the model. All right, and pricing. So our virtual mentorship program is $500 an educator. You get that course experience, that one-on-one mentoring, the live opportunities for extra engagement if you'd like. We also have a virtual mentorship program plus, which is everything in the virtual mentorship program plus a year, the following school year, of ongoing support. That means those teachers who do VMP plus will get unrestricted access to mentoring for the whole year. They're also going to be allowed or invited to sign up for webinars to support effective implementation. So after a few weeks of implementation or 6 weeks or so, they'll have a session, for example, on troubleshooting in your Modern Classroom launch. How did it go? What can we do? How can we get deeper? How can we look deeper into self-pacing or mastery-based grading, any of those elements? And then finally, we have supports for those educators who do want to pursue that credentialing pathway and planning sessions for those educators who want to do that. So those are the 2 options on pricing. And then in terms of enrollment, we have a couple of options. We have individual enrollment. People can sign up individually and pay. They can fill out a school sponsorship form on our website. We also have scholarships. Right now we have scholarship opportunities in 8 locations all over the country. So if you're from one of these locations, please hit me up and I'll make sure that you have the leader reservation interest form. This is in DC, Chicago, the Twin Cities, Tulsa, state of Indiana, New York City, Connecticut, and Seattle. So we have sponsored scholarships in those areas or regions. We also do school and district enrollment, which means we do tailored planning with you. Let's say you came to me and said, I want to do a group of 30 teachers this summer. We would plan out together how to recruit those teachers, how to support them as they're going through the course. And then after their course is over, we would have a meeting and talk about the results. How did it go? So you can see up here an example of that. What did your teachers rate the course? Would they recommend it to others? Here was their before and after training reflections. And then you will get progress updates all throughout the course about how people are doing in the course. Are they turning in their things? Were they asked to revise? Have they turned it in, but their mentor isn't responding? So you get that kind of update all throughout the course as well. And of course, if you're doing ongoing implementation support, those webinars and teacher leadership pathways are going to be all coordinated by the partnerships team. So if you have interest in partnering, you can fill out our partnership interest form. It looks like this, and we'll talk about it again in a minute. But basically, it's just a quick form where you're going to say your name, your email, where you work, and what you might be interested in terms of partnering with us. And then when you're thinking of sending educators through. All right, so it is time for questions. We have about 5 minutes left for questions. Is there anybody on the call who has a question? You feel free to unmute and share or drop it in the chat. One question that comes up quite often is how should I roll this out, or what kinds of educators will be most successful in this program? And I would say a couple of things. One, think about those educators who are already innovating and hungry for innovation. They're going to be pretty successful in the virtual mentorship program. The other one is those educators who are looking for some new energy, who need to be reinvigorated, who need a little inspiration. They are a great people to share this with as well. Yeah, thank you. The question came through the chat. Do you think the course would be helpful for admin? I think it's hugely helpful for admin. As an administrator who took the course and supported teachers who were using the model, I think it was really helpful for me to be able to speak from experience, to say, I know what you were trained in, and I know how much this is going to transform your classroom. I also think there's huge value in reimagining adult-facing PD as a leader using the instructional model, blended learning and self-pacing. And I think it's a great thing for leaders to do, for sure. Powerful. I would say our most successful school and district implementers, like broadly, have had leaders go through alongside their teachers. Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's some really cool stuff going on from a leader standpoint. Yeah. Leaders can also apply to be DMCEs and mentors, which is also very strongly encouraged. Okay, great. Follow-up question. What about the difference between requiring this format compared to teachers choosing it themselves? I'm so glad you asked. We are an opt-in model for professional development. You know, innovation and reimagining teaching and learning takes a lot of energy, and you have to have capacity to do so. So I think with support from your school and district and interest and willingness for yourself, you're going to be successful in the program. We have had some partners who would require this training, and sometimes it's not as successful for those educators if they're being, you know, invited to do it or told to do it. So I would just say whatever, as much as you can, we're an opt-in model for professional development. Question here. Yeah, okay, so Distinguished Modern Classroom applications, DMCEs, are open every month. So at the end of the month, like if you submit your application February 28th, you should hear by March 31st if you were selected to be a DMCE. Just like our model, however, if your application needs some strengthening or revision, you will be invited to revise. So you can keep trying as long as it takes. We definitely want to have as many teacher leaders and leader leaders, school leaders in our pipeline as possible. Oh, I'm so glad it'll be fun to have you this summer. I'm glad you got the scholarship. Yes, for sure. There's no statute of limitations or like a rule around how long you should be implementing the model before you apply. Really, it's just if you see that this model is working and creating change in your classroom, then apply. You know, as long as you can document what you're doing, you should apply. There's no time limit on that. All right, everybody. I think we've got all of the questions answered. Thank you so much for your time. One last thing I will say is I would love for you to grab this form here. I'm going to drop it in the chat as well as your next step. Love to hear if you're interested in partnering with us. So if you could fill this out, it takes just a few minutes. That would be super helpful. And we look forward to partnering with you all and hopefully seeing many of your educators in Summer Institute. My email is right here. So you can always send me a message anytime to connect directly. And again, here are some additional resources that you can check out. Thank you again so much for being with us today. And I look forward to connecting soon. The recording should be shared out within the next 24 hours, and eventually it'll make its way to our website. All right, everybody, thanks so much for being here. Take care. Have the best afternoon. Bye.